I love traveling. It's adventurous, it's exciting, and it comes with its own set of challenges that I think really help you become a better person. If you're able to travel, I think it's a wonderful thing to do. You know what? I've never been left with a feeling of regret for the places that I've visited. And if I'm given a choice between investing in stuff or travel, I'm always going to go with investing a little bit into travel. You form new memories from the experiences that will leave you with a broader perspective on life. And travel has been life-changing for me, and my hope is that I can encourage you with some of my experiences on the road. So if you're interested in a land of beauty with lots of history and culture, let me tell you a little bit about Argentina. Argentina is a country I've wanted to visit for some time now. It does take a little bit of planning because it's quite far away. It took me over 22 hours to fly over 12,000 kilometers in order to land at the airport in Buenos Aires. Buenos Aires is the capital city of Argentina, one of South America's largest countries. It's a beautiful city with over 15 million people living in it. I'd never been to South America before, but I've known for years that I've always wanted to visit it. I'm drawn to cities because that is where life happens, and you can always learn something when you visit a new city. While in Buenos Aires, I stayed at a beautiful 20-room hotel called Mine Hotel Boutique, and I love staying at this boutique hotel. It's excellent. Attentive staff who are friendly and are hospitable in all departments. And I enjoyed breakfast every morning, and I always felt like the team was there to help me have a fantastic experience in the city. And the hotel was a great launching point for me every day, and it was a restful base to come back home to when the day was done. It's located in the Palermo Soho neighborhood in Buenos Aires. And I felt like Palermo was ideal for a first-time visitor like me. This fast-paced city is full of beautiful architecture, passionate people, art, and culture. And I would say with confidence that Buenos Aires has something for everybody. I also have to note here that I was initially drawn here to experience some of the best food on planet Earth. The Argentine people are known for great food, and let me tell you, they truly live up to that reputation. But a little bit about that later. Getting around the city was fairly easy. The areas that I was most interested in exploring were about an hour to an hour and a half to get to on foot. And I really enjoy walking through any city I'm visiting, so this provided a great opportunity to just do that, just to walk and enjoy. Uber worked well if I needed to go further or if I needed to get to some place on a schedule like an airport. Now you may be wondering, how safe is it in Buenos Aires? It's a good question, but I'll answer you based on what I experienced for the approximately 10 days that I spent in Argentina. At no point in my visit did I ever feel unsafe or in danger. I felt just as safe as I have walking through cities like New York, Chicago, Rome, or even Toronto. Of course, crime exists in Buenos Aires, but just like any of the cities that I just mentioned, there are some places or situations where it would not be wise to be on your own. 80% of my stay was in Palermo, and I felt safe at all hours of the day. So if you're thinking about going, just do your research and don't be flashy with your money. Be smart and you'll be fine. What's the food like? Well, like I said before, I love food. And one of the reasons I wanted to travel to Buenos Aires was because I knew that I would enjoy the food. And enjoy it, I did. I had done a bit of research beforehand, and I knew I wanted to try a few new things off the Argentine menu. Namely, choripan, a street food that you can find throughout the city. It's simple and absolutely delicious. It's Spanish chorizo sausage split down the middle on top of bread with a delicious sauce called chimichurri. I had choripan a few times in the city and loved it every time. My favorite choripan by far was at a place called Chori in Palermo district near the hotel that I was staying at. The choripan that I had was always full of flavor and highly satisfying, and grilled on an Argentine grill called a parrilla over a charcoal fire. Now, you could find someone grilling meat over a fire almost everywhere I went in Buenos Aires. The people here are also known for empanadas, another common snack food. Empanadas vary from region to region. In Buenos Aires, I was able to have them both from an oven and from a deep fryer. It's usually a cooked pastry that's filled with delicious cooked spicy meat. I would see people having two as a snack with a glass of wine in the afternoon. They're filling and they're satisfying. And they have to be, because people in Argentina usually have dinner very late in the evening. Most of them don't consider having supper up until about 9 or 10 p.m. at night. The busiest time for restaurants were usually around 10 p.m., and people will eat until the early hours of the morning. And of course, you can't come to Argentina and not have the steak. There is one restaurant that is world famous for its steak, and that is Don Julio's. The challenge with that, of course, for me, is that when I arrived in the country, I realized that Don Julio's was booked straight through until December. So I was out of luck. But I made a new friend in the city who let me know that Don Julio's was not the be-all and end-all when it comes to steak in Buenos Aires. And he recommended I try a restaurant called La Carniceria. And I'm so glad that he did recommend it. He warned me ahead of time that it would be busy, so I arrived just as they were opening, and I asked if they could fit me in without a reservation, and it worked. And I ordered myself an ollo de bife, the Spanish word for ribeye. Like tears of joy streamed down my face as I ate this delicious meal. Friends, I'm an Alberta boy at heart, and I have to say that these folks make incredibly good steak. If you ever come to Argentina, do not skip out on having a great steak dinner with one of the great restaurants here. Again, I only spent about 10 days in the area, but I also tried to eat things that we wouldn't normally eat in Canada. I made sure I tried some pacu, a very strange fish that is known for having teeth like a human. See, their teeth have evolved that way so that they can eat nuts and fruit that fall into the river. It's a delicious fish that tastes like a cross between trout and chicken. Very delicious. Or how about sweetbreads? What are sweetbreads, you ask? Well, they certainly are not sweet, and they are not bread. They are parts of the animals that we don't normally eat, like the heart, or the pancreas, or the gizzards. So I ordered some at a brew pub called Desmerdero. And listen, friend, a chef is not going to put them on a menu if they're disgusting. And I'm really glad I ordered them, because let me tell you, it was delicious, and I quickly polished off my plate in about 10 minutes. So if you're wondering what sweetbreads taste like after they've been grilled, they taste like chicken, but with a much softer texture. So friend, if a professional chef ever puts sweetbreads in front of you, go ahead and give it a try. I wish we served them here more in Canada. One of the most interesting places to visit in Buenos Aires is the Recoleta Cemetery. Now, just so you know, walking through a cemetery doesn't exactly hit my top 10 list things I'd like to do for fun while traveling. I can probably think of a lot better things to do. However, the Recoleta Cemetery is one of the most interesting mausoleums you could visit. It takes about an hour and a half to walk through the entire area, but it's full of famous and interesting Argentinians, including Eva Perón, more commonly known as Evita. There are nearly 4,700 more vaults for the resting place of other notable Argentines. Or take this couple, for example, Salvador Maria de Carril, a former vice president of Argentina. He was a very wealthy man, but his wife enjoyed shopping so much that they incurred a great deal of debt that unfortunately strained their marriage to the breaking point. So he separated from his wife and left her to pay off her own debt. He eventually died, and she passed away 15 years later. But she commissioned a sculpture to depict her looking the other way in disapproval of him. They didn't like each other in life and made choices to live disapprovingly of each other even in death. He's facing one way and she's facing the other, both looking miserable. Or take Luis Angel Firpo, a famous Argentine boxer known as the Wild Bull of the Pampas. In my view, this man looks so relaxed even in death. I honestly can't see myself ever wanting to have a final resting place like this, but it is interesting to visit and learn a little bit about the history of some of these famous people. It's just one example of the kinds of sculptures and other forms of art that you can find when visiting Buenos Aires. Most of these places can be accessed for free, like the National Art Museum, which is about a 10-minute walk from the cemetery. The European influence is evident throughout the city. If you're interested in architecture and building design, there are so many buildings to appreciate. Another reason I recommend exploring the city on foot. Take a look here at the El Altenio Splendito, an absolutely stunning bookstore. I'm pretty sure that this is the most beautiful bookshop I've ever seen. It used to be a theater, but it was converted into a bookstore. It's free to enter, but it delivers an amazing experience. Now, I can't talk about Argentina without touching on Iguazu Falls, one of the most awe-inspiring natural spaces on planet Earth. It's one of the most photographed waterfalls in the world. It's also the biggest waterfall system in the world. The falls extend about 2.7 kilometers between Brazil and Argentina. And to put that size into perspective, Niagara Falls is about 1.2 kilometers wide. From Buenos Aires, you can either take a 10-hour bus ride north to Puerto Iguazu, or you can do like I did and take an airplane and get there in just over an hour and a half. When I arrived, I took a bus ride to cross over to the Brazilian border and experience the falls from the Brazil side. In October, it's the beginning of spring in the southern hemisphere, so they get a lot of rain. That means that the falls were incredibly powerful. I'm told they normally pour at about 2 million liters of water per second. The day that I visited, they were pouring at 16 million liters of water a second. There was some fear that perhaps the parks wouldn't be open due to the dangerous conditions, but I'm glad they were open. The falls were so intense that between the mist and the sunlight, it was so bright that you could barely see. That being said, it was so incredible. The day after that, I spent a full day at the falls, but this time on the Argentina side in the Iguazu National Park, which is a protected World Heritage Site. Not only does this jungle have the falls, but it's home to hundreds of birds and animals like toucans, coatis, iguanas, jaguars, and I'm told about 35 varieties of snakes, 9 of which are deadly poisonous. So a word to the wise: stay on the trail and avoid being bitten by something that could kill you. But words cannot express how amazing an experience this was. And I will never forget the sights and sounds of the waterfalls and the forests. So if you're ever going to Buenos Aires, please do yourself a favor and don't skip out on the opportunity to visit Iguazu Falls. I had an unforgettable trip. Every day I experienced something new, and every day I met an interesting person, and every day I felt inspired and encouraged. What was so inspiring and encouraging, you ask? Well, I think for me it's easy to forget that we live in a wonderful world that is full of amazing sights, sounds, food, art, and culture. But above all else, it's full of billions of unique people living lives thousands of kilometers away from us. I guess every now and then I need that reminder that there's a whole world out there there are cities like Buenos Aires with 15 million people going about their lives. While they are different, we share so many of the same values. And you really get a feel for that when you're on the receiving end of hospitality. A dinner table is in many ways a bridge. We may be different, but we all like to eat. We may have very little in common, but a beautiful painting and a sculpture can make our day. Our histories can be entirely different, but we always feel humbled and small when we're beside great forces of nature. I'm really grateful to have had this great privilege of traveling. I've now had the time to look at my photos several times from the trip, and what really stands out to me is how happy I look. I look like I'm fully aware of what a gift it is to be alive and experience life on the other side of the world. It doesn't mean that I'm not happy at home. I was just as excited to see my wife and kids when they picked me up at the airport. My family is the greatest treasure in my life, and I'm so grateful that they gave me the gift of time and allowed me to travel alone like this. And if you're like me, your perspective on life can become pretty narrow over time. Doing the same thing over and over can cloud your vision over time. But what I see in my face now in these photos is the joy of being reminded that we live in a beautiful world full of amazing experiences, and there's so much more out there to explore. And you may not need to travel to Argentina to experience this. You could easily hop in a car and head to Jasper or Banff for something like this. So if you feel like you're in a bit of a rut, let me encourage you, maybe write down a goal of travel and then follow through on it. You're not going to regret it. Anyways, friends, thank you so much for listening to some of my highlights for what I hope is the first of many trips to Argentina. Take care. Bye for now.